Hi guys, thanks for tuning into a brand new video. Tonight's a little bit different for myself. I'm out by myself alone and I'm going to be visiting some haunted locations around Bewdley. If you've been following our channel recently, you would have seen over the last couple of weeks that Nathan has been out and about and he's been going to select locations around Shropshire and Worcestershire. And he's been visiting the locations, retelling the stories, and going for a bit of a wander and seeing if he can find anything as well while he's there, and also giving his opinion on the location. So if you saw his last video, you would have seen that about halfway through he said this.
I'm going to say a little bit about the woods, but first I wanted to set out a bit of a challenge. I'm actually setting Brian a challenge. So the challenge I'm setting Brian is I want him to go to 3 locations which are close to him and do exactly the same thing that I've done. Just a short video explaining about the location, a bit of history, what ghost sightings have happened there, etc., and show us around the locations. So yeah, Brian, I want you to hit. There's a lot of haunted pubs around by you. Some have even been in the papers. I think the Talbot's been in the papers and possibly the Black Boy. So I want you to hit either the Talbot or the Black Boy. Do a short video. I want you to go to the Garden of Rest down Whispering Street. That is a phenomenal story, and that is ghost story and history. It's messed up, so that'd be a good one. And either a short whip around Dowles on your own, Dowles Graveyard, obviously that's very famous, or potentially the train tracks I did tonight, as I've just come from. Cats just walked past, scared me. They go from sort of Bewdley to Starport to Hartlebury all the way through. I've kind of hit the one end walking towards his way. He could start at the other end and walk towards my way and perhaps look for the same ghost train. I don't know, we'll see. So that's your challenge, Bri. It's Wednesday, well, it's gone midnight, so it's technically Thursday. I'll be releasing this video Thursday evening, so let's give you over a week. So say by next Friday I want to see your video, and I'm sure everyone else does as well, and see how you get on with it. So
Nathan's challenged me to do the same thing and go out tonight and go exploring around haunted locations in Bewdley. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, he did run off a list of a few. I'm going to try my best to hit those locations tonight, depending on the weather and depending on if the locations are obviously busy or if I can actually get to them and there's no one there. So we shall see. But the first one I'm going to start with, I'm going to slightly modify what he said, because I know of a slightly different ghost story that's kind of linked, so we're going to go with that one first. So here we go. Right, so hopefully you guys can see where I'm walking now. I'm just walking along a country track, and this is the first ghost story of the night. Now, I'm going to be totally honest, this is pretty unscripted for me tonight. I've kind of come out, I've accepted the challenge quite quick because of the nature of my new job. I've only got a limited amount of time to respond and get this video out in time. So here I am, out and about. I haven't done much research or much upskilling myself. Just heard a creepy noise. It was obviously a bird. Well, hopefully it was. The particular story I'm going to tell you about, it is only just a sighting as far as I'm aware. I don't actually have any context of the story, what might cause the haunting, the history of the location. But this is a story that I was told when I was a young boy. It was actually when I was at school. I believe it was, I want to say middle school. I don't think it was, yeah, it wasn't high school, it was middle school. So I was only young, and Basically, the track I'm on here is at the back of the Starport Road and the Kidderminster Road, and it's an area that I believe is known locally as Major Webbs. Now, the reason why I'm taking you here is because it does kind of link with a location Nathan has said. He mentioned to do a location linked to my side of the Severn Valley Railway, the haunting that he mentioned, which obviously, as he mentioned in the video, the ghost story of the Severn Valley Railway. I think those lights at the safari park you can see behind me. So the legend of the ghost train of the Severn Valley Railway is a story that Nathan covered, and I cannot see where I'm going. With that story, it is pretty much just, I think, a one-off sighting. If it's happened multiple times, then it hasn't happened very often. It's not widely reported. And this is why I'm walking in the direction I'm walking now, because he said to encounter it this side, my side of the track, which is what I'm doing. However, obviously Nathan has already told the story, so there's not much else that I can add to the story. But there is this story that I can add, which is the current track that I'm on now that you see in the video. I was always told a ghost story about this track when I was a young boy, back at school, and I've only managed to do a very quick amount of research before this video, just to brush up a few details, but nothing major. I haven't had any major time to prepare for this video, so it's very much unscripted. I didn't find any evidence or any backup of this ghost story, so this ghost story, I don't know whether it is just a local sort of story, whether it's legend, or whether it was made up just to scare me as a kid. But the only thing I will say is that a few of my friends at school were also aware of the story, because I do vaguely recall we all spoke about it. But this very long track that you've seen me walk, there is meant to be an apparition of a headless horseman, which I don't know under what circumstances he is meant to appear. I don't know why he appears. I don't know the reason for this haunting. I don't know much about the history of the location in itself. So I don't know if there's any relevance to this haunting, or whether perhaps it's just made up. I'm not sure. But one thing I do know is walking this track in the middle of the night would have once been a thing of my nightmares. The story used to absolutely terrify me as a child, thinking that you're going to bump into a headless horseman riding down this very narrow path that I've just walked. Doesn't really fill you with much confidence. It's not like you can move exactly out the way and get out of his way, because it is a very narrow path with bushes and barbed wire either side of you. So if you see that thing coming charging at you, then it's not really going to be very good, I'm sure. But it's not really something I've heard much about since I was a child, so it's one to look into for definite. As I say, I do remember not just myself, but other friends that I had at school, and other people at school. We did once all talk about it. I'm pretty sure there was an occasion where a few of us all said, oh, we'll meet at one night and go for a bit of a walk down there. And it was Alright, so just heard a noise clicking down here, which is very interesting because okay, I'm hearing a lot of noises. Now, I didn't expect to be creeped out here, but I don't know if you guys heard that. I'm falling over everywhere. But I am now at the train track. Now, obviously, I heard a bit of a metallic noise then. It did sound like the track, I'm not going to lie, but there is nothing there. So, I'll be honest, I'm not actually quite sure what would have caused that. But either way, there's not really much And I thought I heard footsteps behind me, but I don't think so. There's not really much else I can say as regards to the haunting itself. Obviously, we've already covered that. What made that noise then, I don't know if that was picked up on the camera or not. But hopefully if it was, that'll be interesting to review. And yeah, that's it really. So, the legend of the headless horseman, which I don't really have much information about, but perhaps he is, I don't know, maybe he's only been seen a handful of times, maybe he's only been seen once. It sounds like it's as common, or possibly slightly less common, than the story of the ghost train that we've just walked by. A ghost train that was already mentioned in Nathan's video. And so I'm going to continue going for a bit of a walk now, and I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go to next, but I will see you in a bit. Right guys, I'm now sat outside the Bewdley Hotel, which was formerly known as the Black Boy. There's the ghost train. So you'll have to excuse me for the noise of traffic and the sound of ghost trains. I've tried to get a pint in here just before they close, and so I can tell the story. I might just edit a few bits out while it's too noisy, so if you just bear with me for that. This location has had many paranormal teams here before in the past, providing guided tours for the public, and they have had mediums join them on these tours. And there have been a number of findings that have come out of these tours. That looks creepy now, doesn't it? Bloody hell. Right guys, so I am now sat outside the Bewdley Hotel, which was formerly known as the Black Boy Hotel. It's recently gone through a name change, and it is meant to be one of the most haunted pubs in Bewdley. I mean, a lot of the pubs in Bewdley do have ghost stories to them, so this is just one of the others. But the story from this pub is that a number of teams have been here before, a number of teams that have gone and done like a public tour of the pub, a public ghost tour. One of the major recurring apparitions, if you like, of this location is in the cellar of the pub, apparently. The apparition of a tall black figure is commonly seen down there and used to affect people like a negative entity and meant to have a negative effect on people. Now, obviously, I'm not on a guided ghost tour. I can't go and have a look for myself. The black figure does interest me. Perhaps the black figure was maybe a previous landlord, or, well, I guess I was going to say maybe a previous punter who used to come in and use the pub, but I wouldn't have thought he would have been in the basement as such, so I'm going to guess it's maybe a previous employee or somebody who, I don't know. I do believe that other hauntings have happened here. I know that a lot of the upstairs area is actually meant to feel particularly weird, especially to one of the current owners. I did go up there once for a very quick tour. This is going back probably 12 months ago, maybe more, and stupidly I didn't take any photos or do anything, but I was trying to get them to allow us access. So when I had a look around, and I was pointed in the direction of one of these locations upstairs where she says she feels quite weird, and I think it's one of the upper bedrooms. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's always cold, and it's always like a cold, damp feeling. It's not very nice in there. Yeah, not very pleasant. They didn't actually tell me about the cellar being particularly weird, but that is where a lot of the reported accounts happen from previous ghost tours. So that is quite interesting. There is actually something else which is linked to this pub. They have an outdoor area called the barn. Now, I think this came as a result of one of the said ghost hunts previously that were done here. But as I said, they had a medium, and I will need to look into this further to make sure and see if there's any historical records of this happening. But I believe there was once a fire inside the barn, and unfortunately when the fire occurred and struck, there was a young boy in there who, unfortunately, as a result of the fire, ended up perishing. in the fire. So it is said that there is a small boy that still resides at the pub and the barn area and still haunts it, and apparently it's not a particularly very nice haunting. I believe he is at unrest and pain from the story that I have heard. Hopefully one day, if we can ever do a private ghost hunt of the pub, this is something we can look for. But the story of the boy actually goes a little bit further as well, and just next door to the Black Boy and just around the corner there is the next location of my video, which is actually a garden of rest. So it's a former churchyard, and supposedly the boy has been seen in this churchyard along with many other apparitions and weird activity. So that is going to be the next location for my video. I'll be heading over there very shortly once I've finished off my lovely pint of Birra Moretti. So anyway, I'll take us to our next location next. I'll see you there. Okay, so I've now entered the Garden of Rest, which, as I just mentioned, has the story. I'm just going to turn the brightness up a bit. Has the story of the little boy running from the Black Boy through this park. He is apparently said to run through the park. Not really sure why he would come here. I would have thought he is more trapped, if you like, in the barn, but who knows. But the story of the Garden of Rest doesn't really end there. It's actually quite an interesting one. It is a garden of rest because this used to be a churchyard in itself. I believe it was called Christ Church, and Christ Church was demolished, I believe, back in the 50s, but I might be wrong on that, it could be the 40s, to make way for the new church that was built in Ribbenhall, All Saints. And this church has had plenty more sightings other than just the small boy that ran from the Black Boy barn. So the Garden of Rest is actually where the malt house is. Now, for those of you who have followed us from day one, you obviously saw our earlier investigations and our earlier episodes. The malt house was our third filmed investigation. It's an investigation that we went to because the homeowner was having a lot of strange activity over a large period of time, and members of the family who lived there also experienced strange goings on. So we were allowed to come and visit, and we didn't capture anything conclusive in terms of paranormal. We didn't get any great EVPs or anything too visual, but we did capture some pretty cool light anomalies, and some strange things happened when we left the building for an hour. So I'm going to put those clips in now, just as a reminder, or for anyone brand new to our channel who haven't seen that. Obviously, have a look at it, see what you think, and if you can explain the lights, let us know. We'd love to know. So here's the clip. So it is a relatively small area in here, and obviously being a churchyard, there were lots of bodies that were buried in here. Now, as they made room, when it was turned into a garden of rest, the bodies were exhumed, which means they were all dug up and relocated. There's actually a really cool photograph. Now, we did include the photo in the same episode of the Malthouse, but I'm going to throw that photo in this video again, purely because it is actually quite an interesting one. That photograph, basically the people that were exhuming the bodies and the graves, there was something very interesting captured in that photo. It seemed like there was an extra body stood next to the gravediggers, it was a bit of a strange thing. And what they did is they basically relocated the rest of the graves out of here, and they moved them to the newer church. I'm going to drop that in the video now for you guys to have a look. Comment down below what you think that photograph is, what you think caused that apparition. Do you think it is a ghost of, I don't know, somebody stood next to them? Or do you think there's something else to it? Do you think it's pareidolia? Do you think, I don't know, let us know what your thoughts are. So comment down below what you think is happening in the photo. I think if I go over here, I could be wrong, but as I walk over here, I think they did keep some of the remaining graves. So as you can see, some of the graves remain, but it is extremely overgrown now. Very old. They have company, and it's not paranormal. Now, where I'm pointing the camera roughly about now, between here and the main pathway through there, holds an interesting one actually, because there has been one other sighting, if you like, which has seemed to be quite a common one through most of the people who report sightings here, and that's actually of just a plain ghostly figure walking through, whether that's like a white ghostly figure that has been seen walking through, whether that could be a monk or something, perhaps somebody religious from the past, or perhaps just a lost soul that still wanders here. Now, I never thought that I would see anything here, I've got to be honest, and I'm still hoping that tonight we will. I do remember coming back here from, I think it was a couple of years ago. I was met by Nathan and the guys from Morris and Anderson Paranormal, and we went for a bit of a midnight stroll, and this is one of the locations that we came to. And what 3 out of the 6 of us saw was perhaps the same ghostly figure that was seen and has been reported multiple times before. I can't guarantee it's the same figure, but I can guarantee that it was myself, Nathan, and it was Chris from Morris and Anderson. Well, I think it was Chris. We all saw like a white misty figure starting to form on the pathway just ahead of where I am now and going into that entrance. The other 3 members, Jody, Shell, who else was it? Oh no, it was just 5 of us, wasn't it? Yeah, so Jody and Shell at the time didn't actually see the figure. It was just me, Nathan, Chris. And it was a bit weird because we've never really seen anything like that before. So, is it the same haunting? We do not know. But that is about it for the Garden of Rest. There is a bit of a cool story that I can add on. And it's not actually part of the Garden of Rest, but it is right next to it. And that is, it's to do with the Black Death and the Plague. I'm just going to walk to it now, and I'm going to take you the long way as I can talk to you about this. But yeah, basically, like many places, the Black Death hit England back in the day, and it affected pretty much everywhere. And it hit Bewdley pretty hard. It wasn't terrible, but it was bad enough, obviously. So, like with many places all over the country, there was a mass sort of burial site, if you like, where they would throw all the bodies in. So Bewdley had its own, and it's just round the corner from the Garden of Rest, which I'm just taking you to now. Westbourne Street, which was formerly known as Whispering Street. And there are a few reasons why it was known as Whispering Street. So there are a few theories for why it was called Whispering Street. Basically down to smugglers and criminals who would try and escape Bewdley and try and cross the river. And in order to do that, you'd have to cross during the night when it was quiet, and you would cross the river here at Whispering Street. Hence why you would whisper, you would be quiet so you wouldn't be caught. I'm pretty sure I've got that right. I might have that wrong, but I think that is the most logical theory. The spooky theory of why it's called Whispering Street is down to the bodies of the dead that were buried right at the end of the street, who unfortunately died from the plague. And basically, wait for the car. Basically, when people would pass by the site, they would whisper or were quiet and silent out of respect for the dead and the fallen. And the plague site is actually in here, basically in a compound of an electricity station. There's a big tree that grows in there, but as many of the locals will state, and it is a fairly good point, nothing else actually grows in there. It's quite a barren little place. The ground doesn't look particularly healthy. I'm not saying that's plague related, but who knows? So yeah, so the edge of Whispering Street. Anyway, I'm going to go to our final location for this evening, so I'll see you there. Right guys, I'm on my way to the final location now. As I'm sure all of you who have followed us throughout our journey, or if you're even new to our channel, if you've had a browse around, then this next location will not be a shock to you. It will be quite familiar, and I'm basically going to Dowles Graveyard, which, I'm not going to lie to you, it does freak me out. Now, we haven't actually investigated Dowles Graveyard for a very long time, although it does seem to be quite a common location on our channel. It's somewhere where we commonly go, and those that know us personally would have probably always heard us talking about Dowles Graveyard. So we've caught ghostly figures, ghostly apparitions on video and photo, and we've also heard really clear, crystal clear voice recordings. So I can't see a thing when I'm putting this torch to my face. Okay, so the reason why I'm walking the main road and not the usual river path route that we walk is very simple. The weather over the last 24 to 36 hours has been absolutely shocking, just as my footing is in the dark. And basically, the river path would be absolutely lethal. The mud and the puddles, and I can barely see as it is walking on a main road, so walking along next to the river in this sort of weather by myself isn't the best idea, so I've come this way. Now, Dowles has become a very popular spot for ghost hunting and paranormal investigation. I don't know if I'm going to be in there alone when I get there, or whether there's already going to be teams working in there. If there are teams, I might just poke my head around and say hello, but I can't really complete my video as such. Okay then guys, so here I am on the entrance path to Dowles. Now, as you just saw there, there is a gate now across the entrance. You used to be able to drive a car down here, but unfortunately now that has now been stopped. Obviously this is a public right of way though, so you can walk through, but you can no longer park through here. The floor looks just as lethal, I think, if that's mud, potentially. Not really too sure. So yeah, so we've had a lot of strange things here in Dowles. As you can tell as well, I don't know if you can tell, it's raining, so got a little bit wet on the way here. And that's it. So when we used to be able to drive down here, Nathan bought his car, first of all, and straight ahead of us is where he saw a figure starting to manifest. And so that was encounter number 1 that we ever had at Dowles. I didn't actually see it, but we did end up reversing quite quickly and leaving. I see something reflecting in front of me, but I can't tell what that is at the moment. It's really starting to rain now, as you can probably tell, so this is only going to be a short and sweet visit now. Figure number 2 that we saw, and we both saw this one, was actually the other side of that gate. And we both saw like what looked like a hooded, robed figure. Now when we saw that, we scarpered out of here. We were a couple of teenagers when we first came, and we absolutely scarpered. And to prove what we saw was legit, and we both saw it, we went back to mine. We both took a pen and paper each, and we sat down, and opposite ends of the room, pen and paper, and we drew what we saw. And none of us are artists by any means, neither of us, but what we drew was the same figure, a hooded, robed figure, which was pretty creepy, as you can imagine. So after that, we did not come back here for a very long time. And I'm just going through the actual churchyard now, as you can see. It's absolutely throwing it down, so I probably will end this in a second. But to continue the storytelling, and by the way, the reason why footsteps. So the reason I didn't go into the parish room itself is that's actually been blocked up. There's a big gate over there now saying, well, no entry, basically. Entry is not permitted. So we can only walk through this bit at the moment. Where I'm stood, roughly about here. Oh, it's a stone. Where I'm stood roughly about here, it's actually where the old church used to be. Now, when we first came here, we actually thought it was where the parish room was. It turns out it wasn't where the parish room was. We thought it was the church. It wasn't. Right guys, so I have very limited torchlight left. My torch has just died. So I am going to have to wrap this up any second now, because as Nathan knows, this torch is pretty useless and does die quite often. But as I said, we've caught lots of photos in here, lots of videos. I'm going to play some for you now in the video to bulk this section up a little bit. Also, when we first came here to do our investigation the first time round, this is where we caught a really interesting EVP. As I was saying goodbye, would anyone like to say goodbye? Something did whisper. Pretty sure I just sort of saw a shadow through those stones. And again. But I think it's the mist of my voice, so that's fine. But yeah, as I said, would anything like to say goodbye to us? Something did whisper goodbye into the camera. So yet again, to bulk that section up, I'm going to play that clip for you now. And let me know what you think.
Right behind you.
Like, I mean, freezing, icy cold, my back. That's only when you walk past me. Did you just breathe? So as that clip shows, and I think you can probably hear the rain, so I'm also it's definitely time to call it a day. As that clip shows, Nathan was in front of me at the time. I actually heard the voice, audibly heard it in my right ear, which is the only EVP we've ever caught which I've actually heard myself. So it's interesting. The last thing I'm going to show you in Dowles is the mort safe right there. So mort safes were used to protect bodies basically from grave robbers. However, they did have a more sinister story. People used to be scared of the thought of the dead coming back to life and returning. So sometimes mort safes, those metal cages, were placed on top of graves. Now it is said that in this graveyard there is supposedly a lady who was buried called Susan Wowen. She was tried for witchcraft. She apparently grew horns on top of her head, which is probably a medical condition, let's face it, but back in the day they wouldn't have thought so, and they would have probably tried her for witchcraft and she probably suffered the consequences. But she is said to be buried here, as you can see. My torch is on its way out, which, yeah, that just freaked me out. So there's a good chance that she was tried for witchcraft, and I believe her body is buried in here. Possibly it's the mort safe, we don't know. Her horns are also said to reside in a museum. They got moved to a museum. I can't remember the name of the museum, but they are meant to be somewhere still, so that would be really cool to see one day. Anyway, is there anything else to say? This time of year especially, we've always found that the activity in this graveyard seems to flourish for some reason. We're not sure why, but it seems to be September onwards each year. September to about November, I'd say, is its peak. And then it sort of goes more inactive as the year goes on, but it builds up. It seems to have a build-up of energy around September time. Obviously I'm filming this in October, so it has got a creepy vibe to it. But yeah, so I'm going to end the video there, and I will see you outside. Right guys, thanks for watching. So that concludes this video of walking around some of the haunted locations in Bewdley. What would you like next? Would you like a part 2, perhaps covering some more locations from the area? Maybe me and Nathan to do perhaps Dowles Graveyard one last time. As I said earlier, it has been a very long time since we've done Dowles, and I know we've done a live stream there before, but we could perhaps do a proper investigation now with some of the newer gadgets that we've got and see what happens. So let me know what you think of this video, let me know what you want next, and don't forget, like and subscribe, and until next time, keep seeking the truth. Good night.